I usually live, as you know, in Baja California, in lately in Ensenada, but now in the summer I am living in Cuernavaca. My sister lives here, and she has two beautiful children that I'm helping her to take care during the summer. And I don't know if I take care of them or they take care of me. But it's nice. It's nice for a change to be with the family.
Is it very hot over there?
It's quite hot, and now at this time as you see, the sun is hitting hard. So it's yes, it's warm. Well, I mean, I don't know how warm is Tijuana now.
It's warm, but it's not like sweltering heat. Like say if you go to Mexicali, right? It's still like
No,
it's still on the coast. But
absolutely.
honestly, like I really like it here in Mexico. I like the culture. Do you prefer Mexico or the U.S. to live?
Oof, that's a very complicated question. Well, of course, I prefer Mexico in terms that I am Mexican. I speak Spanish. I definitely feel Mexican with the culture, no? Full, but of course, I do like the salaries in the US. No, there's more money there. It's very difficult to get well paid in Mexico. No,
Right.
especially for the kind of music that I do. So yes, in that sense, I mean, if money would not be an issue, I would not think very often in the United States. I have to say, I would stay happily in Mexico, but I think that is important for yeah, for business, for music relations and things like that. I think that it's important to be in touch with the United States.
How did you get into the music that you currently do?
Well, that's also a good question. It's not a, such a short answer. I mean, I have to say that I do like to play every kind of music, but of course, as a professional guitarist, I've chosen to play a lot of contemporary music, no, to work with composers and to be like a test pilot of music, no, that I really like, and I really like to go into the unknown, let's say.
Yeah.
When music takes me to the unknown, that's really cool. That makes me an astronaut of my own field, in my own field, and that's fine. I got there because, well, I got into the classical guitar, no, and once I started playing the guitar, I realized that the normal repertoire of the guitar is very limited, mostly boring, I have to say, no.
Mhm. Yeah.
So contemporary music seemed very appealing, not only because of the aesthetics and the music itself, but also because it allows me to play with other people. No, normal classical guitarists, they play just by themselves. No, they play
Right.
solo all the time. Where you have all these festivals all around the world where it's full of solo recitals, where just one guy comes out and play. And that is really not appealing to me. I really like to work with other people. I like to work with singers. I like to make an ensemble, to be soloist, to play with a quartet, to play with electronics. No, so that is what really brought me into contemporary music.
Right. Versus like playing the music of composers that have already passed away, you choose to collaborate and you choose to um, work in tandem with composers who are trying to distill their intellectual ideas, and you kind of in a way collaborate with them and help them to bring it down. But at the same time, you're an astronaut, like you're taking it to lift off, right? So yeah.
Yes, let's say that the composers they draw the flight plan, no, and I use my guitar to go there. So when it really works, no, I have collaborated with many, and of course every time is a little bit different. No, every composer is a world, like every person. But ideally, it's like that. So the composers have these aesthetic ideas that they develop, no, that they work on, and I help them to land them on the guitar. So for example, they say that I need a continuous sound. I like this. I'm looking for that. No, and then I say, well, in the guitar you can do this, you can do that, and usually it works very well. No, it has yielded very good pieces that I play in my repertoire. I usually focus on telling them that to teach them how the guitar is a stronger instrument. No, because the problem with traditional composers is that they sometimes try to imitate the piano on the guitar, and that's definitely a false path, no? And
Right.
it still happens very much because there are composers that in order to write music they need to write it on the piano. So when that happens, that definitely doesn't work for the guitar, no? So my work is to tell them how to work, and this is yeah. And so I would say that they draw the plan, and I teach them how, and I do it. No, I fly the plane.
Yeah, so I actually spent some time in Ciudad de Mexico, and what I realized is that the people are very well read. They have a lot of knowledge about literature and films, and it's a cultural center. I know that you hail from there, right? From Ciudad de Mexico,
Absolutely.
and so
Yes.
and some of my favorite directors are also like Cuaron. You know, he's this great intellect
Claro.
on
Yes.
cinema, and Del Toro is obviously from Guadalajara, and Iñárritu I think is from Ciudad de Mexico as well. So I just because music and films share a lot in common. I think because they're both art forms that unfold in time. You know,
Absolutely.
and yeah, go ahead, yeah.
No, yes, I was going to say that I do like very much those directors, and it's true that in Mexico City I feel that there's more interconnection between the artists. No, maybe classical music is the last one to connect, but I do see a lot of writers and cinema people and visual artists that they work together, no, and they form a more compact society than I see in the United States, for example, as a whole, no.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a sense of your development, like from growing up in Ciudad de Mexico, and not really to understand where you ended up, but I just want to get a sense of like what inspired you along the way, like certain things. You know, maybe it was like some kind of literary book club, or it was a film club, or some people you met, or some the school that you went to. Uh,
Well, that's a good question, and it's interesting. So I did go to a not a very common high school.
mhm,
There was now I find out that this kind of high school and this kind of schools are less and less going away. So some they call them active schools. No, when I was there, and it's true that it was very much art oriented. No, so from that school, for example, in that school there are some famous artists that studied in that high school where I was. No, for example, Emanuel Lubetsky, which is the photographer for all these guys. No, who
right.
has also won. He was just a couple of years above me, and also
El Chivo.
El Chivo. That's the Chivo, yes, Emanuel
Chivo.
Lubetsky.
Yeah.
And then we have this other very famous, probably the most famous visual artist, which in this moment, of course, I don't remember. El Pájaro, Gabriel Orozco.
Right.
He also studied there. So yes, for example, when I was in the last grade, we have a class that's called aesthetics. So and the teacher would invite all these famous, not so famous then, but very famous now, to teach us some, for example, to give us a class on architecture, to give us. So I was really aware of contemporary art before I finished high school. Let's say, no. I also had some good luck with a colleague of mine when I was studying music. He's a guitarist, but his cousin was a painter and was very much into the painting, in visual artists. So I met a lot of artists there. I went to a lot of exhibitions, and a lot of parties, no, which were way more interesting and fun than the music ones. So yes, so I think that I was in contact with contemporary art very very early in my education. So it was nothing when I really devoted, decided to, okay, I'm going to walk this way. It was not something absolutely new. I knew what was going on more or less.
Yeah. So when you work with composers, like it was kind of a revelation to me that the ideas of some of these composers do not come from music. They might come from something like physics or mathematics. Like when I learned about Roger Reynolds, and like there was this piece called The Behavior of Mirrors, and it was interesting to me that music doesn't necessarily have to be in this box, that it can be cross disciplinary, right? And that was like interesting to me.
Absolutely. I think that particularly working, my experience working with him, with Roger Reynolds, I would say is one of the best experiences I've had because it was a beautiful process from the beginning. So he had, when I met him, he already had this piece, Behavior of Mirrors. But after that, he wrote another three pieces for me. So one is called, well, he has this cycle of little solos, and then he wrote this big piece by this called Dream Mirror, which is a very big piece for guitar and electronics. So yes, so and the process was really nice because I know what he wanted, no, because he has seen me play before. So he was very much into the Spanish rasgados and that. But in fact, what he was looking for is the richness that the guitar has within the articulation of the sound. No, I think that if you compare the guitar with other instruments, I think it's rather rich in the ways that you can produce the sound. No, so because you can pluck it rasgado inwards, outwards, you can. So you can rub it, you can scratch it, no, and I think that that's what he was very interested in this capacity of the guitar, and then so he started writing fragments. No, I told him, and he loved the idea because he said, "Well, tell me some ideas how to approach the guitar." And then I told him, "Well, why don't you do rock musicians or jazz musicians learn music? So why don't you write licks, no, which is small phrases of music that I would play." And he loved the idea, so he started sending me these little licks, no, short one bar piece of music, and they were all great. So the problem came when he put everything together, no, because they became really difficult. But we worked, and well, at the end we got very nice pieces. And this is so, and I think it's one of the best collaborations I've had because he was really open to hear what I had to say. In fact, after we recorded it, after we played it, in a lot of concerts, at the end he said, "Hey, Pablo, I'm gonna send the music to the to the publisher, but I noticed that you do some things that they are not in the score." So I went to him, I met him, and I showed him how I was doing or not doing some of the things that they were in the score. And instead of doing, "Hey, why don't you do this?" He would say, "Oh, okay." And he changed it from his score into the way I was doing it before sending it to the publisher. So let's say that the final word of what worked or not, it was me. And that was really interesting because there are many composers that they just think, "Oh, you are not good enough." I'm gonna leave it like that and wait until some other genius comes and plays it properly, which almost never happens. But but in this case, I really like the approach he had. It was a really balanced situation between composer and performer.
Yeah, it seems like composers sometimes they have this, maybe come to music composition late in life after they do a lot of other things, and it seems kind of interesting to me how that works, and the music is always influenced by their journey in life, right? um,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
What makes that a good composer in your opinion?
Oh well, That's also a very not easy question to answer. I think that I love the beginning of that movie Amadeus, no, by Milos Forman. Have you seen it? No, it's a classic, no, because
I
the very first piece, the this priest that is talking to the to Salieri, no,
right.
the guy says, "Hey, do you know this piece?" No, no, I have no idea about that piece. Come on, this was a success in its time. But then he played tan 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 tari gari gari. Oh, I know that one, no? And then so I think that's the same. So I think that a composer music is successful whenever it goes beyond its first performance. Whenever people, other musicians want to play it in other places. So when music itself is like it takes its own life, and then the music by itself starts moving. No, for example, there's one piece by this Mexican composer called Temazcal, which is a piece for maracas and tape. No, oof, that piece, for example, has been performed by every percussionist in the world now. No, and it's a classic. So I think that that's what makes when you realize that piece is a success beyond. No, so it went more beyond what the composer intended. No, and I think that that's what happened to great music, because nowadays the world is fixed in such a way that there's a lot of new music being performed, but a lot of music never performed again. No, so it's like they play it, they record it, and then no one else cares in playing it again. And and that's the most common thing. So when one of these pieces outgrow, let's say, the composer that wrote it, then I think that that's a successful piece.
Yeah, what I liked about UCSD was that it broadened my horizons to such an extent. I mean, so broad, as in you'd go into a class and you would have to appreciate the sound of like the skateboard wheels or the sound of the ocean and things like that. So you kind of like develop an appreciation for sound, as opposed to like defining what is music, because I guess people who haven't had the fortune to be in a program will have their scope kind of limited to what music is, right? And well, in the concert hall we would get people from who are not in the music department, and they would be in the audience, and they would be like, is this music? I don't get it, you know what I mean? And I guess that's the role of the artist, right? Is that you have to challenge your audience and not always please them. uh,
Absolutely. I think that that's the difference between art and entertainment, no? So I don't consider myself an entertainer. And maybe that's a mistake in terms of the money, huh? but but it's very fulfilling in terms of an artist. So what I think is that music has to move you, has to tell you something beyond just spending some good time. And in that sense, yes, there's a lot of music that people would not allow themselves to pay attention to because it has a more difficult language, or it has some rough noises or something, and people get immediately blocked, and they don't see beyond that. And actually I think that there is fantastic music composed with any element possible, with noises, with nature sounds, with electronic, with the distortion of the sound, all that. Now, let's say our palette of sound, so where we take music from, is huge. Is huge. That's the modern world now.
Right. And say if it's a painting, like you're not really confronted with it. Like you can choose to look at it or choose not to look at it. But with music and you're there, you're just confronted with it. And like some people have this visceral like, fuck, I don't like that. You know, I'm not used to that. That's not what music is to me. And it's unfortunate, right? Like you get a lot of backlash for it, or you get a lot of sneers because what you do isn't music.
Absolutely, but besides my being in UCSD, I have also been the curator of several festivals in Mexico, contemporary music festivals, and I have had all kind of positive experiences where people who are not used to hear this kind of music, they hear it for the first time and they love it. I think that a common mistake is not to explain it. No, of course we think, okay, music doesn't need an explanation, but when you get into these complicated languages, I think it's important to tell people what is about to happen in words before. That's one thing that is crucial, that sometimes is not done. And then what I also think is very important, which is a very, very, very common mistake at UCSD and other places like that, is that they really make really long programs. So and composers, they tend to write very long music, and all this makes it more difficult for, let's say, normal audience to enjoy it. No, but in my experience, if you would take care of these aspects, no, and for people who are new to this, or if you really want to build up some audience, you need to to take in consideration the length of the concert, the kind of pieces that you put together, and an explanation before. Otherwise, you will get these negative reactions. And I always tell them that it's really delicate and very important, because if you do it wrong, the only thing you will do is now you will vaccinate people against the music we do. No, now there is a famous word, the vaccine. No, and that's very common. I have seen it. No, for example, I remember one time at UCSD that this composer, very crazy, wrote this piece, homage to Chelsea. And so the Chelsea has this story that he went crazy into a madhouse, and he cured himself by playing one note of a piano for 1 year. No, and so that's kind of the legend, no, of that composer. But then this composer here wrote a piece that was playing one note in the piano like for 40 minutes. No. So I remember some of the people in the audience when they came out. Well, I had this friend, no, I was from Venezuela. He was just visiting and he told me, "Tell me who is this composer, because I'm gonna kill him now." No, in this very moment. So yes, so I think it's very important the way it's like, if you go to a nice restaurant and you want to try, they give you, small portions of food. There's a plan on how you will eat them. No, but sometimes they don't plan like these concerts. They just throw in all the music they need to have to be performed, and they don't care if it's short or long, or if the concert ends up 6 hours long. And this is very delicate, because that scares people. So we have to be careful with this.
Yeah, I think contemporary music and the music you do, also the music at UCSD, has a long future ahead of it, and I don't think people are vaccinated against it, because I think the art community, the people who produce films or produce art, they crave a cross disciplinary approach to composition in whatever, and they crave novelty. I think people crave novelty because if they heard that soundtrack before, it somehow doesn't lend itself to something new, right? It's like something that's been done before. And I think as writers and directors, we're like looking for something we haven't heard before, right? I think humans we're always like looking for that something new.
Yes, but that's a tricky. That could be also a difficult thing. I think when you only look for the new, it could be tricky, because it's really hard to get new. But I understand what you say. So it's important to not settle in any conventionalism. No, I think that's really important. And I don't think the danger of there is music future is in danger or something like that. Not at all. I think that the academia in the United States is well funded and big enough to maintain everything of all of this alive. So my problem with it is that I think that we should work to really move it to broader audiences. No, so because sometimes they are content, happy if this music is played like a weird experiment in the university, for an audience of 5 grad students. And I think that's not good. I think that, of course, you might sometimes write something too experimental only for really for experts, but I think that composers need to reach out more. That's definitely something I do. and it's important. But I think that now with the new technologies and all these possibilities, the future of music is there. So I hope, the only thing I hope is that it gets more known.
Yeah, in the entertainment world, like if five people showed up, I mean that would be a failure, and like the promoter would be like he never work again. Like, you know, the whole infrastructure of a industry is based upon money and ticket sales and, like, you know, supply and demand. And it seems like academia, because it's like a almost this communist aesthetic of like, oh, you know, like we're funded, it's okay, we don't need you. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's what happens sometimes, and I think that that's not good either. No, so because their funding doesn't depend. So it's good that that their funding doesn't depend in the audience, in the number of people that go, because otherwise it will never grow. But I think it's also important that using this support, they try to reach out more. So I think that those are the two things that have to, you find a balance with it. No.